The odds of success in small business, whatever it is, first time are pretty slim, to be honest. Um, and that's one of the things that I want to encourage people to recognize is, but going to these shows like this, and you get to talk to these people, that's what gives you the motivation to get better. And you learn.
Gary Buchs, longtime Overdrive contributor, former owner-operator, now turned business coach for a myriad of both new and more experienced owners. Well, Gary knows of what he speaks with regard to the notion that first-time small business owners are like as not to fail first time out. There's a reason he went on to success in trucking, after all. His first forays as a young man in agriculture didn't go so well. But yeah, a first-time failure doesn't mean the drive to success stops in its tracks. And what he's finding this week in that regard on site at the Walcott Truckers Jamboree in Iowa is a prime subject for today's edition of the Overdrive Radio podcast. Thanks for joining us as always. I'm Todd Dills, your host for today, and as I recently told owner-operator Eric Vallet out of Northern California, there are a ton of different ways to cover a truck show from a journalism perspective. When you can't be on the ground yourself, as is definitely the case for me with the big show at the Iowa 80 truck stop this week, sometimes you can borrow a pair of eyes and ears, this time around a voice of clarity, as it were, as a fine substitute. That's Gary Buchs, this week owner-operators, speaking this morning from the restaurant at Iowa 80.
Well, day 2 is going to be a little bit wet, and I know that the communities, the states, the farmers out here, they are really feeling blessed to be able to get some rain. It's not a blowing storm, just a kind of a drizzly day a little bit, but the temperature is going to be nice, and it won't interfere a lot with people walking around if they have a little umbrella, and I'm sure there'll be some breaks in the weather, and inside the exhibition tent in the building, a lot of fellowship.
On day 1, Thursday, July 14th, Buchs took in the multitudes of show-quality working trucks on display, visited with the FMCSA then for a talk over training with other owner-operators.
Training the trainers and testing and certifying. Not only I mentioned that, and I brought up that the supervisors of those people need to be also.
Buchs has seen recruiting successes for OTR and more local work for a medical waste haul company, an operator in search of a solid, steady job after personal difficulties.
The gentleman walked up and he had gotten his CDL and had all the endorsements, but after he got it, his mother became ill and he had to take care of family. But he was looking for a job now, and they right away talked to him about they have straight trucks and how he can be home every day and things like that, and hourly pay, so very predictable, good time off, like 4-day work week for him. So it was like fate that he walked in and they're like, we have an opening right in your area.
And there's much more, including plenty of business discussion that pointed Buchs down the road to a conclusion that the drive to small business ownership in trucking is alive and well, no matter how difficult succeeding in that drive might get. We'll get to that for sure, but before we dive into it fully, here's Gary Buchs speaking to the real value of taking the time to visit with peers at an event, like the Walcott Truckers Jamboree or any of the myriad shows all around the nation through the spring, summer, and fall of every single year.
You learn so much more when you're face-to-face with people, and you get that interaction. You can't replace that with online or on the phone generally. And, maybe after you build a relationship, you can. But, it's going to be going on, Saturday they expect to be the big family day out here. And they've got some music and other things planned, of course. But even if a driver that hears this is driving through, just to stop and do like a 2-hour break split for their log and
2 or
take
3.
a quick walk around. It's worth it. It
Yeah.
really is. It's inspiring, and it will give you positive energy to help you feel better about your work and the business and the future for your history, going forward. I really think that's what's one of the benefits.
So today, taking the temperature of small business trucking with Gary Buchs at the Walcott Truckers Jamboree. After you get through this edition of Overdrive Radio, be sure to look him up on overdriveonline.com. That's Gary Buchs, Buchs. He's been a multi-year regular contributor to the Overdrive Extra blog, likewise our Partners in Business series with the business consultants over at ATBS, and as suggested earlier, nobody's quite so perceptive when it comes to how our own personal psychologies can work both for and against us when it comes to business matters. Here's Buchs setting up a little of what he's hearing from owner-operators all around the show in Iowa.
People are in a great mood, great attitudes about where they are in life and even the industry. As much as we hear a lot of the complaining, the truth is out here, when you get among the people, they really don't express, they have their daily concerns.
Sure.
But the majority of people here are really quite positive with their attitudes.
In spite of the challenges that exist for everyone, particularly when it comes to the cost of fuel, the cost of parts, still difficulty sourcing parts. I mean, all these problems are shared by everyone, and kind of in spite of that, I think I found the same thing when I was out in California. It's kind of like people are still upbeat because things are otherwise humming along, and there's still money to be made, and they're doing it.
The people who are prepared for business and run their business as a business are doing quite well.
That's not to say that challenges aren't extant, and particularly for operators in California, big legal questions loom around any day now. Impending labor law changes throwing a wrench into independent contractor relationships with any leased owner-operators. Small fleets I spoke to out in California at the A.J. Souza Memorial Truck Show a couple weeks ago underscored those points, but nonetheless remained upbeat about business prospects, quite in spite of it. Could get pretty costly, though, when it comes to legal fees and other adjustments made to preserve existing contractor relationships, depending on the route taken. Gary Buchs referenced then a conversation with Jimmy Navarez about his preparations for handling AB5, with several contractors hauling for his Angus transportation business, in addition to himself. Navarez is in Walcott too, with Freightliner's Team Run Smart program, of which he's long been a partner.
That was one of the more extended conversations as he's challenged with the changes for his company being in California.
Right.
And he explained that. I don't want to disclose a lot of details because I don't want to make Jimmy a target of something, because he mentioned because I can't give legal advice,
right.
And just because he's doing something, he has hired a lawyer, but he's got a plan. He didn't wait. He's got his plan in place, working through those problems as a business owner and as a person who cares about the people that work with him. Henry Albert was there also, and a lot of people know his name. I learned quite a bit about some of the new trucks, technology, and what's going on. And I have to be honest, some of that I did not know. There's always things to learn. You have to be open-minded. We can't change is going to be inevitable. There's a lot of positive things about the new equipment that's coming out that we don't want to be going the whole negative attitude, as Cliff Peterson says, the automatic negative, thinking.
Right.
And so had a good visit with Marty Ellis at the OIDA trailer.
Okay.
And they've got I think strong interest. You know, there's still a lot of people in the industry that don't understand organizations like OIDA or NASTIC, and because they're so somewhat isolated in their truck, and if they're not in a network of people that they can talk about these things, they see the ads, they see this, but they don't understand the services as well as maybe they could benefit from. A gentleman named Travis, who oversees the fuel program for OIDA, for example, and probably go back and spend a little time today learning a little more. I asked if I could come back and sit down privately about how their fuel program works to help their members.
Sure.
And try to make that investment at time while I'm here.
Yeah, it's tied to it's a fuel card type of program, right?
Right. Yeah.
To remember.
And there's multiple programs out there.
Yeah.
And for the smaller or more independent operator that's not in a lease situation, these are valuable tools. And it's interesting. We find a lot of times it's like a couple of friends. Yeah, I've been talking about doing this for 5 years, and I just haven't got the trigger to, the motivation to pull the trigger. And
and whatever we're talking, whatever the case may be, any change,
right,
that, is on the horizon that you've been thinking about. It's just like, that happens so many times. It's just that procrastination instinct.
Right. That is one of the great benefits to people who attend an event like this. If you're a trucker or a trucker family, in the business, whatever business you're in, to attend an event like this or Louisville, these things, they are great ways not only to learn, to meet people, to just socialize, but it can become that motivation to make that move that you've talked about or thought about for even years,
right,
to improve in your business, because that self-accountability, and that's something that I find that I become for the people I work with is sort of an accountability partner. Hey, I need to catch up my bookkeeping. Well, guess what? Within a couple of days, they send me a note and say, hey, got it caught up after talking to you, because it's that accountability. It's like my wife, Marcia, she holds me accountable quite often, I should say. It's part of the psychology. So I happened to bump into Britta Noack, the truck owner that's originally from East Germany, that you and I met last year.
Gary Buchs is referring there, and you heard me mention her company's name, the owner and operator of Bratcat Express out of Florida, Britta Novak, recipient last year of the Trucking Industry Trailblazer Award from the Real Women in Trucking organization.
She's such an upbeat person, and we ran into each other at the FMCSA booth
there,
and a lot of really good people there with the FMCSA. People, that's how you learn. You talk to people. They are there to help you, and they want to hear what you're thinking. When we get these comment periods to express, and they asked us a lot of questions. They talked to us about the driver training, for example, both Britta and I, what we thought, and we expressed, similar but slightly different ideas. Britta wants to, quite interestingly, she's pursuing the idea of trying to self-insure it through a bond so she can hire some drivers that need training, because it's so hard to insure a new driver. And so she's been, I have to tell you, that's a big undertaking to think about. But her background in that, she feels like some people that you've interviewed and met, to help those who have not had the opportunities in life that come from a hard background. Maybe they had some minor problems with the law, or maybe they didn't have a strong family background or community support, whatever the case. And so people like that are willing to take that personal investment to help, as I like to say, we help even one person, maybe that was what we were supposed to do in life.
Right.
So the FMCSA people, they wanted to know a lot about the training about that, and we expressed some ideas, and everyone has ideas about it. I know that.
You guys got into a conversation about ways to ideas to possibly strengthen the training,
absolutely,
the training program
right.
That's in place now. Yeah. Okay.
We talked about training the trainers and testing and certifying. Not only I mentioned that, and right. I brought up that the supervisors of those people need to be also trained to just assume these things are going to be done correctly.
To just make that assumption that trainers, supervisors are up to par, well, better required standards might be in order. That's what Buchs is getting at there. The entry-level driver training rule that went into effect in February this year doesn't exactly establish new training requirements for those who train CDL drivers themselves. Generally, state requirements that exist for trainers need to be met. Yet for Gary, Buchs, and I know many others, there's a feeling that better standards might well be in order in that regard. Buchs mentioned comment periods earlier, too. Just a quick note that the speed limiter comment period is set to close this coming Monday for those who haven't gotten their thoughts reflected in the record as yet. FMCSA is asking a bevy of specific questions about the ECM technology that allows top speed settings within the trucks of the last couple decades and more. But I know many owners have taken the opportunity to comment on the very fact that the agency seems intent on moving forward with a mandate to utilize speed settings. No doubt, an unpopular move among a great deal of the owner-operator world as it is. Find a link to comment via overdriveonline.com. You'll see my colleague Alex Lockey's story there about the 2020 split sleeper change if you're listening ahead of July 18th, no doubt. There's a link at the bottom of that story to the speed limiter docket. As for the stars of the Walcott show this year, as every other, Gary Buchs noted one of last year's Small Fleet Champ finalists, Rob Hellhan, is in attendance and showing off his always pristine equipment. There's a whole lot more, no doubt.
And there's so many beautiful pieces of equipment. Pictures do not do them justice.
Yeah. And what's the participation look like this year, Gary? Is it about the same as it was last year?
It's about the same as last year. Yeah. Several of the owners mentioned, because they communicate with people that do this, they think that there are people that the price of fuel, that's the only time I heard anything about fuel. They said they thought the price of fuel did prevent a few people from coming and bringing their show truck.
Making the trip,
and making that trip. Because of that, they're just too far away. Or
can't justify the expense,
Right, if they're not got a load that comes through. And I was getting just kind of wandering slowly back towards the parking lot, and this beautiful truck, I sent a picture to you, Conrad Shade, I think that's how he says it, from Anamosa, Iowa. Okay. Cattle farmers. I think he said they raise about 3,000 head a year. Spent 3.5 years rebuilding that Peterbilt, and he loved the old style. He said, I took as many things off of the truck. It was a 2020. So I took as many things off of it as I put back on it to make it more old school. It is a glider that he built. It's got a cat in it, and the engine's painted white, and the purple, it is a work of art. And his family, he talked about spending that 3.5 years, a lot of time, and the family getting involved, and it was almost like he was expressing towards the end. It was like his wife, get it done. Just get it done. They used to haul for other people, cattle. They just pretty much do their own hauling for their own agricultural business now.
Really is a beauty of a 2020 Pete. It's the work, again, of Conrad Shada. That's Shada. Find a picture of it in the post that houses this podcast for July 15th, 2022 via overdriveonline.com/overdrive-radio.
One of the families I walked by and was talking brought their working truck, Then there's quite a few working show trucks.
Most of the trucks out there, Gary, I'd say the large majority are working trucks, right?
Yes, they are.
That's always how it is.
Yeah. A lot of them are much fancier and more elite than others, but a couple, and I think they had their grandson with them from Nebraska, and they had a little crack in the front fender, and and it was kind of cute. They were like, she was like apologizing for her truck not being so fancy, and I wasn't. I'm like, I think it's wonderful. You brought this truck. You got 1,700,000 miles on it, and you've obviously taken great care of it, and it's clean, and it shows people the dedication that the people, the owners, have in this industry, the commitment for years and years. And I talk a lot about having, balance between work and life. And I'm going to say it this way. People like that, they have the right kind of pride in their truck, in their equipment, themselves, their family, community. And I will call that work life. Their life, it's both. They get away in their own fashion to do their, private family time, but it might be going to the truck show. That may be their vacation that they, regenerate themselves. And that's wonderful, because that's the kind of thing that keeps this industry grounded, as I put it. We talk a lot about the, mega carriers taking over and so on and so forth. My personal opinion is, in this country, I don't see us ever losing that drive to become that small owner of a business or a position that, it's just part of our ingrained sense of, I don't want to call it duty. I'm trying to, just our culture. It's our culture. And I talked to several people who had gotten a truck, had an accident, got put out of business because of the hardship, or started their business and failed, but they were there with the personal instinct and drive to pursue that path again,
to come back and
acknowledge, acknowledging the mistakes they made. The odds of success in small business, whatever it is, first time, are pretty slim, to be honest. And that's one of the things that I want to encourage people to recognize is, but going to these shows like this, and you get to talk to these people, that's what gives you the motivation to get better, and you learn so much.
Here's hoping we see you down the road at the next one. Overdrive Radio is a production of Overdrive, the voice of the American trucker. Edited and produced by me, Todd Dills, with the acoustic guitar and other support of trucker songwriter and Overdrive contributor, Long Haul Paul Marhofer. The podcast is backed up further by our own news editor, Matt Cole, social media coordinator, Holly Young, and executive editor, Alex Lockett. We'll see you at the next one.